Hello, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner and myself, Seth Hellman. It's episode 15 today. It's a special number on a special day, and because of this, we've got a special guest, our resident Kohen at the Chabad house of, what do we call it, Greater Boston? Is that what you
Correct.
consider yourself?
CH at GB.
We got Mr. Kaplan here. Josh, how we doing today?
Baruch Hashem, how are you?
We're doing all right. Rabbi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank God. It's a great day. As we were talking before we got on air, the sun is shining in Boston and in New Hampshire, and also, believe it or not, in Cambridge.
Oh, Cambridge, Somerville, yeah, the whole New England area seems to be graced with beautiful weather. It's awesome.
All right, let's move on from that.
All right, so Josh, let's get talking about. I guess we'll start off with your. Well, firstly, I guess congratulations are in order for those of you who don't know. I mean, it's I wouldn't call it that recent, but recently had a young, healthy baby boy. So how has that been? How have the first couple of months of fatherhood been for you?
It's a wild ride. You don't know what to expect, and then it happens to you, and there's no training, and people give you a couple books to read. You're like, do I read the books? I don't know, but I'm just gonna go flying into this, and thank God everything is well. Yoram David is an amazing baby, happy, healthy, he's awesome. So it's amazing being a father. Highly recommend.
What
So
would you say
I would
is
say,
the most? Oh yeah, go Rabbi.
I would say that because I'm a father also. Of a small clan.
I was gonna say
A small clan. Basically, you try to raise your children. You raise your children better. You want to raise your children better than your parents raised you. You end up raising them pretty much exactly the same as your parents did raise you. And as while you're doing certain things, you say, my father used to do this to me. I shouldn't be doing this. And you try to control yourself. Sometimes you do. Usually you're not that successful. And then you have to ask yourself a question, look in the mirror and say, am I a good guy? Am I a upright, upstanding citizen of the society? Am I a good Jew? And if you say yes, then your parents probably did something right. If you said no, get therapy.
Right.
So really,
just listen to the Pos-cast.
So yeah, you can take hints and advice and try to do things, but really just think how your parents raised you. That they did a pretty good job, which everybody thinks their parents did. Go with that. All right.
Absolutely.
Enough with fathering and parenting. Well,
I
Chase
like the
Island is not ready for that yet. We got to
discussion.
push him under the chuppah still.
Working on it.
And we'll pause for a little announcement. First, you should go to yeshiva.
So, Seth, on the yeshiva thing, which is a great motif that's been happening over the past couple episodes. I remember one time I was at Rabbi Posner's for Shabbos, and it was 9:30. It was Chassidus. We're trying to learn, and he's giving me the spiel. Why aren't you in yeshiva? And I go, Rabbi, I'm trying to get married. There's no women in yeshiva. He just looks at me dead eye, goes, fair point, and then walks away from me. I was like, I think I did something right here.
See, the problem is that I can't use that though, because he already knows that I have the woman. It's just a
Right,
matter
right.
of getting there.
Correct.
That's what Colwell's for.
Now back to the Josh Kaplan story.
All right.
Yeah, so Josh, you're obviously a good Starka from Yid. Has it always been like that? Was that a journey that you got to? How was your upbringing in that sense?
It is it's been a journey. It's been a roller coaster. So I grew up secular but proud in the great town of Mansfield, where there's not so many Jews. But we have amazing shluchim there, Rabbi Yossi and Sivi Kivman. I first met them my sophomore year of high school. My brother and I were working at local Stop and Shop, as does every teenager in New England. And we see these Orthodox looking people, and they're handing out matzo ball soup. But I think it was before Pesach time. And we go over there so excited that we found these other Jews. We're showing them our high school class rings. And even though we weren't religious, we had the Star of David on them, either in the stone or on the side. I don't know. We were like, oh, we're so proud. And so we started talking to them. And it was very exciting. And then so they started trying to invite us over for Shabbos meals, but I was still secular and I had no interest in it. I was like, look, Friday night, I want to go hang out with my friends. Saturday is a free day. I'm going to go do things. I don't want to be stuck in synagogue doing whatever. This isn't fun for me. But things changed as what may have happened with you and a lot of people as well, as you go off to college and you meet Chabad on campus. So growing up, very nice. I mean, we did my bar mitzvah. It was actually a b'nai mitzvah with my brother and I at Lafayette House in Foxborough, tray food on a Saturday.
Excuse me. At this point, you should let the audience know that you had the bar mitzvah with your brother because
we're twins.
Oh, okay.
And we were told we can do a b'nai mitzvah, which is two bar mitzvahs, I guess, happening at the same time. And we didn't even do Hebrew school. We did 21 months of private tutoring for our b'nai mitzvah. That was the extent of my Jewish education. But then again, we went off to college, and Rabbi Yossi Kivman called Rabbi Shmuel Posner from Amherst and goes, "You need to contact the Kaplans. You need to take care of these kids." So we started going there junior year. I started going to Hillel sophomore year after doing nothing freshman year. Again, got to college, proud Jew, but religion just didn't seem fun to me. It seemed like you're stuck in services, and it's not going to be fun. So Hillel sophomore year, first time had Jewish friends, which was great. Didn't have Jewish friends growing up. And then my brother gives me a call junior year around Simchas Torah saying there's a rabbi on campus doing a wine pong Kiddush Cup tournament for Simchas Torah. Come be my wine pong partner. I'm in college. I like to play. I like to party. I'm like, this should be fun. Why not? I show up. There's like 5 tables. There's a bracket system. I'm like, this is ridiculous and amazing. And I just kept coming back. Like that was like the hook, line, and sinker for me. After meeting Shmuel Posner, and every Shabbos was going back, started keeping Shabbos there, stayed with them all senior year for Pesach to ensure I was keeping full Pesach. It was the first time I ever kept full Pesach kashrut for like all 8 days. It was amazing. And of course you leave college and you go back home and it's like, yeah, that was fun, but that was my college life. But back home in Mansfield, I still want to see friends and go out. So, you have this internal battle going on, like classic animal soul, Jewish soul, the godly soul type of stuff, right? And then my brother, while we was in college, he's an engineer and sees things ones and zeros. So as I'm fluctuating through my whole thing, trying to figure out, he's like, nope, this is the answer. And 0 to 60, like kept Shabbos, grew out a beard, davening 3 times a day. And so there's an interesting dynamic when we moved back home and want to do Shabbos dinners. I'm like, yeah, but that's school stuff. I don't want to watch and do Shabbos dinner Friday night. I want to go like see people. And eventually it got to me, this is really important. Shabbos, kashrut, to fill in like the whole 9 yards. So a little bit later, 2015, after I started working for a year, I started getting back into the swing of things. It was during the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I started wearing my kippah to work. I was like, I think I'll put on tzitzis. And I started getting into the motion of doing tefillin in the morning before I left for work, quick Shema and roll out. And then started building from there, visiting, either staying with by the Kidmas for Shabbos, going back to Shmuel to see him in Amherst. And when my brother started grad school in about 2014, he started at BU and lived at the Posners in the nice apartment complex they got up top. So I'd visit him. And, even first time I met Rabbi Posner was at Chabad on campus Shabbaton. I knew Shmuel Posner, September, 2 months later, November, we're going off to Shabbaton for the first time. And I only knew about Crown Heights from Mati Shahu, right? Live at Stubbs Volume 1. And I got into that like freshman year of high school. He's singing about Mashiach and Hashem. I'm like, I don't know what this guy's saying, but this stuff is awesome. And then so finally we make it to Crown Heights. I'm like, this is it. This is like the Holy Land. We've stayed at most excellent people, Adel and Dov Sports, found out they live right next to where Mati Shahu stayed when he lived in Crown Heights. I was like, this is mind-blowing. We met Avram Fried. Like it was a whole big thing. And of course, if you've ever been to Chabad on campus Shabbaton, Pagisha. That was after I graduated. But yes, Pagisha.
Gotta keep the brand.
Right, branding's critical.
Promote the brand.
But Rabbi Posner here gives the infamous or famous, depending how you've experienced it, Moshe Shabbos for bringing. And
this is my favorite experience of all time.
It's lively because everyone, all the rabbis are trying to make sure the students are comfortable and they're having fun. And Posner comes in and he's just darts around the room, calling out students, calling out rabbis. There's tears. It's like we laughed, we cried, we had a really good time. Promised someone to fill in, got someone to go to seminary. First time I was there, Yaakov Zar, who we're so close with, is there, and I just see Posner smacking the crap out of this guy. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, but this is amazing.
Well,
And
so
so we go up to
it's
him
funny because
yeah.
you for us, so I guess for you this was like a new experience with them, but for me, when I first went on, when I went on Pigisha, like I've been with this guy for at this, this was not this school year but the school year before, so it was like 2.5 years at that point that I had been
Yeah.
exposed to him. And so you show up to this for bringing, and it's not like outlandish, it's just the rabbi being the rabbi, but
Right.
it's no one else there is used to it other than the rabbis and his students. So it's like this
Yep.
out of body experience where you're sitting there watching this happen. And then he goes and he does the pants story with the tefillin, where it's like, do you put on pants every morning? And the guy's like, yeah, so why aren't you putting on tefillin? And so we're just like sitting in this corner cracking up because it's all of the things that he says to us all of the time. And other people are just like, so like, it's such a foreign experience the first time that they get to see it.
Josh Kaplan.
Right. No, but it's amazing to hear from other perspectives. Again, this is the first time we met him. So afterwards, we're awed by this man. And so we go up to him afterwards. My brother's like, oh, that was amazing. I learned so much. You're so inspirational, and tries to shake his hand. And he's like, look, if you're saying thank you and trying to shake my hand, like, you don't need to. I don't need to hear that. Just keep on doing your thing. And we're like, wow. He's like, this aura of this man so holy, he doesn't even want to hear a thank you from us. And so, over time, meeting him, meeting the Kidmans, meeting Shmuel Kavitsky, and also Rabbi Edelman and Amherst, moving out to Cambridge, Somerville some years later, meeting the Shluchim here. Rabbi Alltime's been great in Cambridge, meeting Mesh across the river, YJP in Brookline. There's been that Chabad connection kind of wherever I've gone to, and there's always been that support, and then realizing internally how important it is for not just my brother who did his own route, for me to become religious in a certain way and take on everything. Obviously, at my own time, right place. There's the internal pressures you can get from people, which is still good. It's like you think you can't take anything more, try to add that one more thing, right? But it's all about growth and continuing to grow. At some points I would hit, and then I was still living at home after I graduated college for a few years, and then I wasn't keeping stuff going back down. So you have to be in that environment and in that mindset and know that this is truly important. Because it's not just it's for you, but it's also when you want to get married and build a house and a family. How are you going to raise your kids? Where are you going to want to end up living in that type of community? So my Yiddishkeit's definitely been a wild ride, and there's always room to grow from here. And I've plenty of other stories, but I don't want to talk too much on it. It's just yeah.
I guess it kind of, on the family note, it brings up the question for me of what was the reaction from your parents? I mean, you mentioned being in a very secular household growing up, and then all of a sudden you've gone, it's not even just a slight move. It's a pretty drastic move, it sounds like, from where you started. So what was the family reaction, I guess, and how did that kind of develop over time?
Right. So my brother was the pilot program. He did the whole, I'm keeping Shabbos now, mom and dad, I can't eat at your place anymore. And of course my mom was kind of more fine with it. She was always kind of open up more to religion. Her dad was Orthodox, her mom was Reform. And I know we don't really go by labels, but it's kind of a basis of a setting of how she grew up, which I guess you take the, denominator, it's like conservative. My dad grew up conservative, I guess, in that type of thing, but didn't like organized religion. So of course there was a classic rebellious, from the parents, not appreciating this, not understanding it. And then we went up to college really getting into it, still not understanding it. And my dad and I clash a little bit with it with my brother. But I had to, I accepted it. I was like, this is Brett, engineer ones and zeros, just like my dad, engineer ones and zeros, and they're both very stubborn people. And so this is how it's going to be. And to the point where my dad talked to me and he's like, I think I'm losing Brett over this. I'm like, yeah, you keep pushing back, you will, but you got to accept it and embrace it and support him with it. And he's like, that was the best advice you've ever given me. And that was kind of like the green light. So when I became firm, he's like, okay, yeah, this is great. We've already seen this. And now they've all grown in a lot of ways. I mean, my dad grew out the massive beard for Yiddishkeit, for the blessings and everything like that, not just because he can grow a great beard. They keep kosher at the house. They renovated the whole kitchen. So when we come home, we can keep kosher and eat there. We'll spend Shabbos with them. He's learning. He just did 3-year Rambam cycle. He does a weekly class with Rabbi Yossi on Zoom. So it's been just like how I pulled a 180, and a lot of Baal Teshuvas end up kind of pulling a 180 from where they were to where they are now. My family too, have pulled like a 180 in terms of their Yiddishkeit. So for me, it was easier dealing with them, keeping Shabbos, I'm keeping kosher. It was really, Brett set like the precedent, and then I kind of snuck in there. It was like, okay, now it's my turn. And thank God, it's amazing, right? Where he's, from, he has a wife and 2 kids. I'm married, I have a kid, and they're able to support that type of stuff and appreciate that lifestyle. And we don't have any, really like heartburn or concern about it. So thank God, it's all blessings.
Was there any point or any moment of, like, you talk about a general progression, which is pretty amazing. I mean, your story in general, it's really, really impressive, because it sounds like it's really it's none of this, I was in Thailand on a mountain and, and I saw a vision in the cloud and it came down and some Swahili told me I should go to Crown Heights. Those stories are cool too, but this is,
right.
This sounds almost normal. Sorry to say, but you sound, I would never call you normal, but it sounds kind of normal. Well, was there any point of like aha moments, like something that you learned or something that some conception you had and then it got changed and that like moved you forward?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a couple things. Again, one, being the Kivmans was great, but I never felt I needed to keep stuff. And it was when I met Shmuel and I realized how fun Yiddishkeit is. It's almost like when we hear, I don't know if you'll ever have Abrams on, but when you hear the Binyamin Abrams story and he meets Rabbi Korn, and Rabbi Korn's doing this type of fun stuff as well. He's like, wait, you can do this and you can do that and you can still be religious. This is amazing. This opens the door to everything. So meeting Shmuel was a huge catalyst. Also, things kind of blew my mind when I was at college. So growing up, I knew I was Jewish. I knew I was a Kohen. I knew I always wanted to marry Jewish, even being not religious. I was like, oh, I understand, you want to marry Jewish and have Jewish kids. And then one day at UMass Amherst, Rabbi Edelman says, oh, so you're a Kohen. It means you can only, marry these types of people or not marry these types of people, and broke it down for me. And I was like, well, if I'm not religious, I'm going to have a hard time trying to find someone who's Kohen eligible. And honestly, it's a very blunt assessment. I was like, this is very difficult to date as a Kohen. There's a lot of restrictions on it, and we can get into it if we want to, but there's, it's in the Parsha and we can always find out about it. But I was like, okay, that, and then learning again the importance of things and seeing how fun it was at Shmuel, where every week I was looking forward for Shabbos, or how he would do certain events, again, like Pesach, Seder under the stars in a big tent, Shabbos meals, just what we would talk about. And it would be serious, but also be fun in games, because he knew how to, him being a Baal Teshuva, knew, and on the younger side, I think when I was going there, he was early 30s, knew how to relate to students in a lot of ways with pop culture. There was so many examples. Like he was like, yeah, dog, back in the day, my favorite bands were the Beatles, the Doors, and Nirvana, or he loves Batman. There's all these things that he would talk about that he could like relate to students on a certain level. And so being like, well, you can enjoy that stuff, but you can still get into Torah and Hasidus and see the excitement within it. And then through him also, meeting Binyamin Abrams as well and getting to know him as well and the excitement, enthusiasm he has. And it's all about how a lot of rabbis can kind of convey these messages and teach and learn. There was never major pressure to go do stuff. He would just want you to come over and have malawach and maybe learn something. And it was a fun time. So there's a few different aspects to it. And I think that's a little bit of a long-winded answer to the type of question you were asking.
No, I think it's amazing. It's very, it sounds very healthy. That's what I think the point is. The idea is to enjoy Judaism. I mean, people on the outside always use the word restrictions. Like Shabbos is restrictive. You can't do all these things. When you invite somebody to your house, you don't tell them, come to my house and don't A, B, C, and D. You say, come to my house and have a good time.
Right.
And the student doesn't even realize that the entire meal has been completely cooked starting this morning when I had to run to the supermarket to get stuff. Because Chani has a crazy day today. I had to slip it in between davening and being ready to do the Pos-cast on time. We're starting for Shabbos now. Some kid will call Friday at 4:00. Could I bring 16 people? And I look at Chani looks at me like, and we start, our mind starts swirling. Okay, we have X amount of pieces of chicken, we'll cut them this way. We'll pull this out of the freezer. But when the kid walks in, it's like, wow, this is great. There's a beautiful meal. There's nice people. There's a good spirit going on. And then when they start appreciating it, then there's the background to it. Like, do you know how we got here? And I think that's, in a sense, the experience you were talking about. Finding you connected to, you had a relationship with Judaism. You then found out that Judaism could be fun. Then you found out that there's underneath it, there's something really serious and really powerful. And you were open to it because, it's classically, you said, animal soul, godly soul. The animal, you have to get to the godly soul. You got to go through the animal soul because we're human beings. Let's not call it the animal soul. Let's call it the human soul. That sounds a lot nice, right? The human soul, the natural, vitalizing human soul, which is similar to an animal because basically you're living. You're living. That's it. To be alive. You eat, you drink, you sleep, you take care of yourself, right? But the godly soul is embedded within it. There's a human being that has a godly soul. It's not a godly soul that has to be carrying around the body. It's in the body. So if you want to talk to someone, you got to get through the body. So when you sit down to eat, you got to give them a nice meal. Once you give the body a nice meal, it's ready to listen. I think I'd heard the Rebbe talking about this before. You got to satisfy the animal soul so it won't interrupt. It's like you have that, like you're eating. If you're having a conversation with somebody, you give him a toy to play with. You're not like rejecting your son. You're keeping him busy on his level so you can do on your level. Every person individually does exactly the same thing. So come on in, have a good time. Okay, now you relax. It's not a bait and switch. We're going to talk to you as one adult to another adult. Let's talk what Judaism really is. And again, I think you support this. The ultimate idea, the change between someone who's observant and from who's not observant, becoming observant, is one word: education. What is it all about? What is a mitzvah? What is Shabbos? What are these things? Why are you doing this? And once you explain it to somebody, it's like, oh, okay, because Jews essentially want to be Jews. I mean, that's what you said so brilliantly, that even though you grew up in a home that wasn't very observant, the foundation was there. Your parents came from homes that lived Jewishly, and they didn't pass it on to you because they drifted away. No blame to them, whatever. But still, they gave you Jewish identity. But there was a block because the animal's saying, the human side of you said, I want to have a good time. I want to have a good time. I'm Jewish, want to have a good time. So that was a contradiction. So what Shmuel did and what Chabad does in general, that's our approach. Break it down. Feed the animal, feed the human side, make them happy. Now let's go. And again, it's not like you're trying to trick anybody. When you meet me and I'm inviting you Friday night, what do you think is going to happen? It's not going to be a night out and sitting in having a couple of blunts somewhere. We're going to be. You like that, right? we're gonna be doing Shabbos, but then walk in. It's like, wow, this is actually fun. This is not oppressive. This is not restrictive, because they don't know how crazy a Shabbos kitchen is. You have to cover this. You can't do that. Blah, blah, blah. All they know is the meal comes out. It's delicious. It's warm. It's fantastic. So yeah, that's great. Let me take you in another direction. I know this is going to be a little personal, but can you tell us a bit about your wife and how you met her, and how, coming from different backgrounds, how you came together and had this wonderful relationship?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So we have different stories of how we met, and she's going to hate that I said this, but I argue we met on J-Swipe. She doesn't like that argument though. So we have a mutual friend who used to.
By the way, you've been married long enough to know that she's right. So cut that out. From
the customer is always right. Yes, of course. No, my wife is always right. So first off, do a little preamble here. The way to keep a happy marriage everlasting, right, is just say yes, dear. Right, it's the two magic words. So we had a mutual friend who was living at the Brookline Moisture House at the time, and this friend said, "Oh, I have a couple friends coming in for Shabbos." And she also had a couple friends like previous week, but she said, "I have a couple friends coming in for Shabbos. Let's all go out mostly Shabbos, Saturday night, to this bar called Drink in Seaport." I was like, "Great." And so earlier that week, I was on JSwipe, and I also used Bashert Now and other systems, right? Because I'm like, I was on the hunt, try to find the right person, not ruling out any methods of trying to find your Bashert. And of course, searching for outside of Boston, because maybe they're not in Boston. And this is exactly what happened. So I matched with someone who I recognize that I think I met before, maybe on the Upper West Side when visiting a friend. We matched. Didn't send her a message. I'm in the Uber going to the bar. I get a message from her saying, "Oh, I hear we're seeing each other tonight at 7:30 at Drink and Seaport." I go, "Oh, you must be one of Rachel's friends." And so I show up, and she's there, and another person's there as well. And that's kind of how we met. So, but she knew she was meeting me. I didn't know I was meeting her. So she'll argue, "Well, I already knew I was meeting him, so G Swipe doesn't count." And I go, "The first time I talked was on this app." Anyways, that's how we met. And then we hung out that night, and then we hung out, with our friend all the next day, went all around Boston, Freedom Trail from Charlestown all the way to Centertown. It was great. And then we started talking more, and I went out, I think a week or so later, to New York for Shabbos. And so we started dating, and we did long distance dating. And when I first met her, I was telling her about kind of like who I am and what I'm connected to, right? And that was pre-beard. Beard is since Omer of 2019 and hasn't stopped. But and I was saying how I'm from Boston. I love here, and I want to stay here, and I work here. But I'm really into Chabad, but I'm not totally Lubavitch. But if I'm picking one lane to stay in, it's like obviously leaning in the Lubavitch area. And I found out that she grew up modern Orthodox in New Jersey and went to Binghamton, and became very close with all the shluchim there, the Sloanums, Hain, everyone. And so she grew up modern Orthodox, very inspired by Lubavitch. I grew up secular and became through Lubavitch. And so we had this common denominator of Chabad and also our love of soup. We were like, okay, Chabad, the Rebbe, soup is like the big three. Like, we're good. That's all we need.
Let's get married.
Right. Are you willing to relocate to Boston? Yes, come on down.
Come on up.
So we met, we did long distance, and then she moved here right before COVID, February 2020 is when she moved to Boston. And then of course, like March is when COVID hit. So obviously engagement would have happened sooner. Everything shut down. So, had to wait to get the engagement going, but it eventually happened. And I remember once we got engaged, you're like, which was in September of 2020, you're like, "Hey, so when are you getting married?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm thinking June, June 2021, nice weather outside for the chuppah." You're like, "June? No. February, March. Yeah, that sounds right." I was like, it's a little early, maybe a little bit cold, but everything worked out. It's kind of interesting because you guys in previous have talked about, you date for 3 months. There's no more that you need to know at this point. And honestly, it's a very valid assessment of that. When it really is. Like, I dated for a longer time. But when you date this one person for 3 months, you should really know everything at that point. And I get the philosophy of, let's get the show on the road, right? There's no point in delaying this commitment. You know this person, you've seen them enough, you share the same values, you know how you want to build a Jewish home together. So either commit and get engaged and get married, or go find someone else. There's no point to dating for a year if it can happen like now. I really do get the philosophy. And again, the way the dating system works, you see the divorce rate amongst that type of stuff is also extremely low compared to, well, we dated for 3 years, we were engaged for another year. We were living together during the whole time, by the way, even before we got engaged, right? And it's a very different process. But that's how we met. And now we live in Somerville, and we have a son. And that's where we are now. And hopefully at some point we can move to a larger Chabad community with affordable housing, because Boston's not feasible for that. And so we're looking at that and trying to figure out the way forward on that, because we want to be able to give ourselves, especially Yuri, all the resources for a family, the full school system, shul, school system, kosher food, the whole 9 yards, which, as much as I love Boston, it lacks those certain things. And we're very close with everyone here.
So your wife grew up in a very observant home.
Yeah.
Is there any, like, not seeing eye to eye, or not in a negative way, maybe in a positive way, like she'll like point things out to you and like, "Oh wow, I didn't know that," or anything like that?
I don't think not seeing eye to eye. I mean, her mom also grew up in Brookline and went to Neha growing up as well. So she was also familiar with Chabad in that. And I think your wife worked with my mother-in-law's mother at Neha.
Right.
So there's definitely this connection of Chabad. Like they know who each other are. The only, yeah, and with them being in a non-Orthodox household and us leading a more like, Lubavitch lifestyle, I guess it can come down to different things on kashrut. Like if we show up, I'm like, okay, like if you can get Halav Yisrael dairy for us, that'd be amazing. Shabbos, they might take in Shabbos a little bit early, and maybe I'll be like, oh, okay, fine, I'll daven early if I have to appease, shul rules. But like everything's very great on eye to eye stuff because we're also very flexible people where we're not sacrificing on things. And yeah, and I would say everything's pretty even for Pesach, right? They'll do the art scroll Haggadah, and I'll use my Gutnick edition, and it's very funny when it'll say art scroll will be like, and now we do this, and mine will say we literally Dafka do not do this.
The pouring of the wine by the 10th
yeah,
place.
it's like you guys can pinky dip all you want. I need a broken vessel, okay? And I will not say next year, this concludes the Pesach Seder because we're continuously in Gullus. But you have fun saying that. So it's interesting, and we get to learn from each other and stuff like that. Well, but it's great visiting a family who is well established in Torah and Orthodoxy and open to and respecting to Chabad. You might not get that in some communities or in some families. Some people go, no, I grew up modern Orthodox and I go to this type of shul and this is what we do. And those Chabad, maybe not so much, it's just kind of how it goes. So everyone's warm and welcoming, which has been phenomenal.
So I think it's fascinating that what really, if you have to say, what do you and your wife have in common before you were married? The answer is Chabad.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, obviously, so she's coming from one place and then she gets inspired, to go, and you're coming from another place, getting inspired, and sort of you come up and meet her, and it's like, yeah, you just like such a comfortable relationship because on the Judaism level, personality wise, obviously, two human beings as human beings, but as far as the Yiddishkeit goes, like there's like snap, yeah, I got the Chabad thing, and you're able to connect on that level. So that's fascinating.
It all comes
down people
to
always think about Chabad like, oh, it's for secular Jews, people who don't know anything, but like, oh, she grew up, Orthodox. Like, what could Chabad give to her? But anybody who knows Chabad, who learns Chassidus, learns Tanya, learns the Rebbe Sichos, knows that there's such a depth to it and a beauty that it adds and an energy that adds to Judaism. That doesn't matter how you grew up, you can, it gives that an added dimension to it. And when you meet, so when you guys met, it sounds like you really clicked on that.
Absolutely. I mean, growing up, it was always when I connect to people, it's, oh, what sports are you into? And what bands are you into? And I'm still into all that stuff, sports, bands, whatever. Like, I get it. But that's how people connect is, what are your interests and your hobbies? Oh, have you seen this movie? Oh, I've never seen this movie. Oh, you're living such a sheltered life. You've never seen this movie. But with her, it's like, okay, maybe we don't have that stuff, but everything was revolved around Judaism. And that's really all that mattered at the end of the day, was we have the same shared value of Chabad and Hasidus, and living a frum lifestyle and building that home, that the secular stuff is whatever, it doesn't matter. It's how you want to raise your family and raise a Jewish household. And that's really what it comes down to.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Well, we're coming down to the end here in terms of time, but Rabbi, is there anything very quickly, give us like a 60-second spiel on today, and just like a quick, like, okay, what should we know? What's important?
This is episode number 15, which is amazing because today is the 15th day of Av, which the Mishnah says that there was no happier days for the Jewish people than the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur. The Gemara comment said, okay, Yom Kippur, we understand. The Jews got forgiven from the golden calf. They brought down this, Moshe brought down the second tablets. What's up with 15th of Av? And basically there's a number of things that happened that were good for the Jewish people. Like, for example, after the spies came back from Israel and said, we don't want to go into, we can't go to Israel, we've got to stay in the desert. And all the Jews cried that night, and God said, you want to cry because I'm giving you the land of Israel? I'll give you a good reason to cry. And that night was Tisha B'Av. And so every year, the key was they died during the 40 years. Every year, some of the men died on Tisha B'Av. That was the day that they would die. The last year, which is after 39 years, because it started after the first year, they thought they still have another year to go. But really, it was predated from the first year when they made the golden calf. Anyway, bottom line is that it was over, but they didn't know it. So the 9th of that year, nobody dies. Oh, we must have made a mistake. And it kept on going till the 15th. When the moon is full, and they realized the 9th of has passed, the Kriya is over. So there was a reversal of the negative of Tisha B'Av on the 15th of Av. And the Gemara gives a few more examples about that at the end of Gemara Tainis. You can look it up. And the Chassidus on it is very simple. The 15th is when the moon is full. When the moon is full, the Jews are compared to the moon. We're a reflection of Hashem. Okay? So when the moon is full, that means, and generationally, King Solomon, Shlomo Melech, was the 15th generation. That was when the moon was full for the Jewish people as a nation. That was the time of perfection. And in fact, the Gemara says that from the 15th of Av and on, the sun gets weaker, meaning that the nights start getting longer and the days get shorter, which gives us more time to learn Torah. Right? You learn Torah, you have to come home for work. You work in the fields, sun goes down, you come home. So the Rebbe says, what does it mean that the sun gets weaker? Because you think about it, the sun is created by Hashem. He says the sun that's worshipped by the idol worshippers. What does that mean? That means that the moon, the Jewish people, are a reflection of Hashem. Other nations, of other people in the world, just like, okay, we exist. They don't like, not like a specific reflection of God in the world in their essential nature. So it's not that the sun is bad, it's that element of the idol worshippers, making themselves great, like they're the sun, like they're the source. That's what an idol worshiper is, denies God. So that gets weaker. So it's actually a positive thing. And Rebbe connects this with the 15th generation from Avram Avinu, which was Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, when everything was wonderful in the world and all the nations helped to build the Beis HaMikdash. And so on the 15th of Av, which is the opposite of what happened the first part of the month, which is the descent into darkness, into destruction, the 15th represents the growth and the light of the Jewish people in the world and of the world in general coming together in the belief of Hashem. And so that the 15th of Av is like a taste of the coming of Mashiach. So it's a very powerful and inspiring day. And in practical terms, look at things from the eyes of a positive eye of godliness in the world, Mashiach coming, do things that are positive, and also keep in mind that it's not just between you and God, but also, and not also as secondary, but equally between person to person, Jew to Jew. So I think having Josh, Yeshua Avraham, Ben Mendel HaKohen on and being our guest today was perfect, talking about how all these different experiences and interactions with different Chabad people brought him to where he is, K'nai Nahara, Bli Ayin Hara, with this beautiful family. So all the best to him and all the best to all of us, and we should see the transformation of Gullus into Geula.
Man.
Josh, as our special guest, do you have any final thoughts to wrap out our episode here?
Oh yeah. So also, first based off what Rabbi Posner said, the Hayom today is all about that. And so I'll lead into how I started doing Hayom Yom the past couple of days, trying to listen to it after I finished davening. And really the main message is, there's a couple main quick points here. Chabad, especially on campus and also in communities as well, is not to make you frum. If you decide to become frum as a result of being aspired, that's even more of a blessing. They just want you to be connected, to be proud and to be connected and to learn. And if you decide to take on more things, you'll hear from a lot of people, every mitzvah stands on its own. If you want to put tefillin on once a day or once a week, or to make a bracha on kosher food or light Shabbos candles, every little mitzvah stands on its own. So you're able to grow incrementally at your own pace and your own way. And when you're comfortable to take on something else or a new thing, you should do it. So I started doing Tehillim after davening, which before I was like, no, I got to finish chakras. I got log on a computer, take meetings, drive Yodi daycare, all this stuff. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start doing daily Tehillim. I'm going to add Hayom Yom into it. Trying to learn Rambam. Each thing is like, whether you're learning or doing an action-based mitzvah or anything else, just do it at your own pace. And I think that's really the big message here. And also talking with the Rebbe as well, whether it's Rabbi Posner or another Chabad on campus Shluchim or anyone that you're close with. If you were saying, I want to learn Tanya, Tanya's deep. Tanya is difficult. If you don't know Tanya, after the first chapter, you're like, I got this. And then you hit chapter 3 and you're like, I don't have this. Learn it with someone. If you want to learn, definitely set up something. And that's how you just work to keep on, keeping things going and keeping inspired. So, again, as Rabbi Posner also said, how I've connected with all these Lubavitchers and Shluchim at my chuppah. I had all these Chabad rabbis up there, and I heard comments for like, have you ever seen so many Chabad rabbis at a type of wedding like this? Like, I had Rabbi Posner right there, Rabbi Yossi right there, Shmuel Kravitsky was doing the wedding, the Slonims were there, the Haynes were there, all these people were over there, and people were like, have you ever seen so many rabbis just standing around the chuppah? It's like, yeah, it's nice having that connection and that they're all here for you, and whether you're holding here or holding here, my brother's here. I'm right here, but it's not a competition. At least with me, it is because we're twins, so everything's a competition. But do it at your own pace and be inspired. And if you have questions, ask. And that's all you got to do. Never say I don't. Never say I can't. Say I will, but at the right time and at the right place. Never rule it out. I still have room to grow. Everyone has room to grow. It's all about you, and there's no judgment, and that's the big thing. You can look like me going to Chabad shul. People are like, great, welcome. You look like something else, maybe less from, more from. It doesn't matter. It's all open, warm, and welcoming, and it's all blessings. So, as a bit of a long-winded last word, but I hope that conveys and means something to a lot of people, whoever's listening to this.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a long episode, but a very good and very entertaining episode, if I do say so myself. So thank you, Josh, for joining us. And thank you, all of you, for listening and or watching. This has been episode 15 of the Pos-cast with Rabbi Shmuel Posner. We'll be back next week, same time, same place.